Isaiah 21:6. For thus hath the Lord said unto me, Go, set a watchman, let him declare what he seeth. King James Version. There's one question that has been asked countless times, and most answers given don't come with a whole lot of information. This question is, how did the Nephilim survive after the flood? This is a question I have asked myself, and every answer that I've ever been given is more vague than the last. In this video, I'm going to do my absolute best to answer this question. And at the end, I'm going to show how all this information ties to our present age and the times we live in. This is a giant jigsaw puzzle with a lot of missing pieces, and I've done my due diligence to try to piece together those missing pieces. In all of the Bible and all of the names that are mentioned in it, there's one man mentioned only once, and only by his name that most people have never paid any attention to. This man and the mention of his name can be found in the book of Luke. Luke chapter 3, verses 23 through 38 is a genealogical list of Jesus through his earthly father, Joseph. Verse 36 mentions his name, Canaan, the son of Arphaxad, the son of Shem, the son of Noah, and the son of Lamech. This Canaan mentioned in verse 36 is not the same Canaan that is mentioned in verse 37, which is third in line from Adam. This Canaan in verse 36 is the only time in the entire Bible his name is even mentioned. He has been omitted from every genealogical list that there is in the Bible. He is not mentioned in the Samaritan Pentateuch, an ancient version of the Hebrew Bible written in a pre-Samaritan text that existed in the Second Temple period. He is not mentioned in the Syriac Bible, the Targum Bibles, the Vulgate. He is not mentioned in the Paleo-Hebrew script, an ancient Hebrew letter style before it switched over to the block letter style. And he is not mentioned in the Masoretic text. So why did Luke include him in his genealogy? Most scholars and theologians say it was just a simple scribal error, that it was a mistake. But I don't think so. Luke was a Gentile and a close friend of Paul, who referred to him as a beloved physician, a doctor, in Colossians 4:14. Scholars have noted that Luke had an outstanding command of the Greek language. His vocabulary was extensive and rich, and his styles at times approached that of classical Greek, as in his preface to his gospel, while other times it seems quite Semitic. He was familiar with selling and had a special love for recording geographical details. All this would indicate that Luke was well educated, observant, and a careful writer. And Luke, being a Gentile who converted over to Christianity, probably didn't have an extensive knowledge of Jewish history. He probably sourced manuscripts he had available in his time and language he could understand. The Septuagint is the Greek translation of the Hebrew Old Testament, and it just so happens to have a genealogical list with Canaan's name, the son of Arphaxad, in it. Luke didn't make a scribal error or a mistake. He copied the genealogical list of Joseph's genealogy straight out of the Septuagint as he's seen it written. So why would the rest of the Bible omit Canaan's name from every genealogical list in the Old Testament? Well, there happens to be a Roman word for this, damnatio memoriae, a Latin phrase meaning condemnation of memory, a Roman practice of erasing someone's existence from history. It was a severe punishment for those deemed as enemies of the state, including the destruction of portraits, statues, and removal of names from public records. And it just so happens that the Romans did not invent this practice. The Romans, the Greeks, the Persians, the Babylonians, the Egyptians, and the Sumerians. This is a practice that began at the beginning of civilization. This is why you will never see Moses' name or the story of the Exodus on any hieroglyphics. It shows weakness of the Egyptian army and the divine power of God over the Egyptian pantheon. It was erased from history. Just like Canaan's name, the son of Arphaxad's name was erased from history. So what did he do to deserve to have his name omitted from all of history? In the book of Jubilees, it happens to mention this event. In the 29th Jubilee, in the first week, in the beginning, therefore, Arphaxad took to himself a wife. Her name was Rasuja, the daughter of Susan, the daughter of Elam, and she bore him a son in the third year, in this week, and he called his name Canaan. And the son grew, and his father taught him writing. and he went to seek for himself a place where he might seize for himself a city. And he found a writing which former generations have carved into the rock. And he read what was thereon, and he transcribed it and sinned, owning it, for it contained the teachings of the watchers in accordance with which they had used to observe the omens of the sun, moon, and stars in all the signs of heaven. And he wrote it down and said nothing regarding it, for he was afraid to speak to Noah about it, lest he should be angry with him on account of it. Canaan found the teachings of the watchers. He wrote them down, studied them, and kept them secret. This was the birthplace of esoteric occult knowledge and the origin of Kabbalah, an esoteric method, discipline, and school of thought in Jewish mysticism. This is where astrology, Gnosticism, ritual magic, ceremonial magic, invocation, necromancy, divination, astral projection, channeling, clairvoyance, and telekinesis, and all other occult practices come from. This was part of the heavenly knowledge that the fallen angels, the 200 watcher angels that descended upon Mount Hermon, gave to mankind, which helped lead to the world's corruption and the flood. And this is only the tip of the iceberg. And to truly understand how this happened, we have to keep reading Jubilees chapter 8. This section of Jubilees also mentions the genealogy of Noah and his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Some of these names in Jubilees is mentioned in the genealogies in Genesis. Some names are not. And some of these names have alternate spellings of names that are found in Genesis. We are told in Genesis 10:6 of the sons of Ham, Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. And in Genesis 10:21, the sons of Shem, which are Elam, Asher, Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram. And also Japheth's sons in verse 2, which are Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, and Tyrus. In the 29th Jubilee, in the first week, in the beginning thereof, Arphaxad took to himself a wife, and her name was Rashujah, the daughter of Susan, the daughter of Elam, and she bore him a son in the 3rd year in this week, and he called his name Canaan. Verse 5, and in the 13th Jubilee, in the 2nd week, in the 1st year thereof, he took to himself a wife, and her name was Malika, the daughter of Madai, the son of Japheth. And in the 14th year he begot a son, and called his name Shilah, for he said, Truly I have been sent. And in the 4th year he was born, and Shilah grew up and took to himself a wife, and her name was Neuk, the daughter of Kesht, his father's brother, in the 113th Jubilee, in the 5th week, in the 1st year thereof. And she bore him a son in the 5th year thereof, and called his name Eber. And he took unto himself a wife, and her name was Azarad, the daughter of Nimrod, in the 32nd Jubilee, in the 7th week, in the 3rd year thereof. And in the 6th year thereof she bore him a son, and called his name Peleg. For in the days he was born, the children of Noah began to divide the earth amongst themselves. For this reason he called his name Peleg. You see, Noah's 3 sons and their intermingling between families has Canaan, the son of Arphaxad, at the center of everything, with all the writings and teachings left behind by the watchers, with all the occult knowledge of ritual magic, sorcery, and witchcraft to perform. And in doing so, he brought back the perversion the fallen angels originally brought with them. It was the second incursion of forbidden knowledge. And with this knowledge, he did something. What? I have no idea. Maybe he did some ritual. Maybe he conjured up the spirits of the dead Nephilim to allow them to possess him. Maybe he found a dead Nephilim's body after the flood and was able to extract some of its blood, and was able to reanimate the DNA through occult rituals and summoning practices, and ingesting it himself, becoming the first reborn Nephilim after the flood. One can only speculate, for there isn't enough information to begin to be accurate. And from this moment on, everything you can research about Canaan implies he became very skilled at everything he did. Canaan was the first, after the flood, who invented astronomy. He was also attributed with finding the city of Haran in Mesopotamia. Canaan's nephew is attributed with finding the city of of the Chaldeans, which he named after himself. The word Chaldeans means clod breaker. It was a territory in lower Mesopotamia, bordering the Persian Gulf. These people were considered the wisest in the land, a Castite, descendants of Kest, Cain's brother, an ancient people who lived in Chaldea and ruled Babylonia. They were renowned for being astronomers and astrologers. Every ancient city in this section of the world exploded around this time, with what seems to be advanced knowledge of science, technology, and engineering. Remember the story of Nimrod in Genesis 10:8? Nimrod's name means rebellion, and he became a mighty one. He became a Gibor in Hebrew, and the Hebrew word for became in this story is halal, which means to profane, defile, pollute, desecrate, which has a side note of profaning oneself or defiling oneself, ritually or sexually. And remember the genealogy from Jubilees? Nimrod married into Canaan's family, where it's a high probability he obtained this occult knowledge from the Watchers, from Canaan, to be able to become a Gibor, a mighty one, a new form of Nephilim. And from here on, this was the beginning of the re-emergence of the Nephilim after the flood. And for this reason, this esoteric, occultic, Kabbalistic reason, is why Canaan's name was omitted on purpose from history and from the Bible. He was damnatio memoriae, systematically removed from history. For he reintroduced fallen angel knowledge back into the world, which helped give rise to the post-flood Nephilim, or giants. My speculation from earlier about Canaan finding a dead Nephilim's body and using its blood isn't merely just a speculation. It may have some truth to it. You see, there's something about the blood, and it goes all the way back to Genesis 3:15. I will put enmity or war between you and the woman, between your seed and hers. This ancient serpent bloodline has always been at the heart of it all. It's a genetic seed war, the genetic DNA of the serpent. The preservation of this ancient Nephilim bloodline has been the main focal point of all of history, starting with this Canaan, the son of Arphaxad, and the inner family breeding of the sons of Noah. This is why God gave us the sexual laws of Leviticus 18, because of the inner family breeding accompanied with the occult knowledge of the Watchers. By Canaan was beginning to create a new creation, a new corruption, a new bloodline. And this is why all the kings and queens throughout all of history interbred within the family. It wasn't preserving royal bloodlines. It was preserving the serpent or the Nephilim bloodline. This is why you hear reports of Hollywood elites harvesting adrenochrome from the blood of children to replace the deficiencies in their corrupted blood, whether this story is true or false. This is why we invaded Iraq in 2003, not for weapons of mass destruction, but because of an email which is believed to be from Hillary Clinton, requesting documents pertaining to the resurrection chamber of Gilgamesh, the location of his body, and the location of the buried Nephilim. It's the bloodline of the Nephilim, of the serpent, that they are after. That's what they are trying to bring back. Through mRNA technologies, cloning and genetic manipulation of samples of DNA from a dead Nephilim, just like Canaan. Ecclesiastes 1:9. What has been will be again, and what has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. This is why right now you can watch videos of Jeffrey Epstein speaking about his fascination and intrigue of genetics and DNA, with hopes of seeding the human race with his own DNA, his own Nephilim serpent DNA. It's about the DNA. It's always been about the bloodline of the serpent. And if you think about it, only a few hundred years ago, all this cloning, mRNA, and genetics, this science and technology, would have been considered witchcraft or sorcery or esoteric occult knowledge. Because of Satan's jealousy of mankind, he tempted Eve in the garden to eat the fruit with hopes of altering God's plan for humanity. However, when God made the decree of Genesis 3:15 to put enmity between him and the woman, between his seed and hers, Satan knew that God's plan was to bring Christ into the world. And from that moment on, his plan became to completely alter the bloodline of humanity, so there is no possible way that Christ could come into the world. But God preserved an unaltered bloodline through Mary for the Messiah to come through. Just like he did with Noah, who was perfect in his generation, so was Mary perfect in her generation. And at the crucifixion of Christ, Satan thought he had won, until Jesus declared on the cross that the seed war was finished. And at that very moment, Satan knew he had been defeated. Ever since he knew he lost, he's known his fate and he's known what awaits him. And from the crucifixion until now, his only plan left is to try to drag as many of God's people to hell with him as he can. You see, it was through the bloodline of the serpent, the bloodline of the wicked, that brought sin and death into this world. And it was the bloodline of the woman, the righteous, sinless bloodline of the woman, Christ, that brought life and forgiveness from the wickedness of the serpent's corruptive bloodline. This corruptive bloodline began right after the flood of Noah, with Canaan's, the son of Arphaxad's discovery of teachings left behind by the fallen watcher angels of Kabbalistic occult knowledge. And with this knowledge, the genetic bloodline of the Nephilim resurfaced. Jesus came into this world and lived a sinless, perfect life, and gave up that life by the shedding of his blood to make an atonement for the forgiveness of our sins. With this selfless act, with the same blood that paid for our salvation, a new bloodline was created, free to all who are willing to accept it. A new bloodline that abolishes and obliterates the corrupted bloodline of the serpent. We are told in various places of the Old Testament that the life is in the blood, and through the blood of Christ, we are able to have new life. If you haven't made Jesus Christ your personal Lord and Savior, I urge you to do so now. And in doing so, you will receive his transfusion into a new bloodline. Thank you, and God bless.